Hello my friends and welcome back to Garhdo Goes Geek, and on today's episode another review for you, this time for the new Super Mario Bros. Movie. One that I was very worried about leading up to release, and we'll see if my worries were justified. So I'll admit, I'm not a huge fan of Mario. In fact, I think I've played a lot of Mario games, but I think I've only ever really completed one, which is Mario Odyssey. And even then, I haven't 100%ed it. Like, there's a lot of that game I've left unexplored, but I've done the story. That was all I really cared to do. I got to the point where it was a collectathon, and a lot of Mario's collectathons, Mario games require a level of skill that I just don't have. Like, I remember when I first got my GameCube, one of the first things I saved up and bought for myself was a GameCube with Super Mario Sunshine. I really enjoyed Mario Sunshine. I think there's a lot in that game to love, but a lot of the platforming puzzles are bloody hard. Like, I'm aware that's something that's held in the fandom as well. Like, that's probably not the best Mario game to start with. But, like, I've never played Mario 64. I've played a lot of the classics. Like, I've played Mario 1, 2, 3. I did most of 3. In fact, I think I completed 3 back in the day. And Super Mario World, which, again, I've done most of the story, not a lot of the secret levels. But I did most of those when I was a kid. No, not now. In fact, every time I've gone back to it since, I've done progressively worse. But yeah, the only real 3D Mario I've ever completed is Odyssey. So yeah, I'm just not generally very good at Mario games. And Mario is an interesting one because I think it has an interesting cast of characters. But unlike, for example, say Sonic, which I am a huge fan of, those characters get very little development. Like, even within the core games themselves, like, I once heard someone describe it as Sonic as an anime, Mario as a cartoon. And what I mean by that is Sonic is, this long-running anime with this deep storytelling and lots of lore and things that you can kind of follow along with and get really invested in. It's got a bit of an edge to it. And there's a lot going on, a lot of characters, a lot of plot lines. Whereas Mario is very simple. Like, most games feature the same sort of plot. I know Paper Mario is different, but again, I've never played any of them either. Which, considering I like RPGs, you'd think they'd be a lot more up my street, but I've not got round to playing any of them ever. And even when the games do something different, like Mario Party or Mario Kart, it's still very simple and very shallow. And that's not to say that all cartoons are shallow, but cartoons are very formulaic. Things reset and you go back to normal. And it's simple and light. And Sonic doesn't really have that. Like, Mario has never had comics, as far as I'm aware. Maybe a manga in Japan, but I don't think there's ever been any sort of licensed comics in the same way there has with, like, Sonic or Mega Man or even Legend of Zelda. Like, I know Legend of Zelda has had long-running manga. Same with Pokemon. But I don't think Mario ever has. And I know part of that is due to the relationship that Nintendo had when trying to bring Mario into America. First, there was the movie The Wizard, which was mainly sort of centered around promoting Mario Bros. 3, but it's not a good film. And then there's obviously the actual Super Mario Brothers movie, which I watched as a kid and quite liked, and I've watched it again since as an adult. I watched it with my kids a couple of years ago. I think it was last year actually when the trailer for the Mario Brothers movie dropped. We watched the original Mario Brothers movie. It's not a good adaptation of Mario, and I don't think it's a great movie, but I still think there's a lot in it to like, and there's a lot in it that's fun. you know, in a very weird way, but yeah, you can still have fun with that film. Like, the kids enjoyed it. We had fun. We watched it. It was fun. We were laughing. Is it a good Mario adaptation? Hell no. But it's still fun. And obviously, both of those in quick succession just really burned Nintendo on the idea of doing movie adaptations. And it's a shame, because Nintendo have some of the best IP in gaming. Like, there's so many good games out there that are ripe for adaptation. But Nintendo has some of the best. Like, Mario. Obviously, you can turn Mario into a huge kids franchise. Legend of Zelda would make a great franchise. F-Zero, those characters, each of those characters has pages of lore. There's 30, 40 races. I think they did do an anime series years ago for F-Zero, but those characters pretty much sat there doing nothing. Star Fox, again, characters with pages of lore, lots of stuff going on, barely been touched in the games. Put them in a cartoon series, kids would watch that every day. Metroid is great. Metroid is like some sort of novel series about Metroid would be great, for example. That would be really good. Something tense, like a choose your own adventure book. That could be amazing. Comic books. Metroid would work really well as a comic. So would Zelda, like an American comic. Manga's great, but like the proper American full color adaptation, new adventures every week, introducing new characters, expanding on the lore, adding things in, like Metroid and Zelda and F-Zero would all work really well for that. So yeah, Nintendo has some great IP that is barely being touched, barely being used, and Mario's chief among that. Now, I was nervous about this Mario Brothers movie. I was already nervous when they announced it was being done by Illumination. Now, I have nothing against Illumination. I think Illumination have done some very good films. Like, the Despicable Me films, they're not great. They're not high cinema by any means. But the first one is still really good. I quite like the second one. And the third one, while it's a bit of a mess, still has a lot to like in it. And then, of course, there's Sing, which, my kids are a big fan of. I watched it. It's all right. It's good. It's got some really good moments in it. And then they've done other films as well that I can't remember off the top of my head. But the issue with Illumination is they very much seem to be a studio that comes up with every single idea they can, throws it into the film, and then sort of comes up with a plot to weave it all together. And that had me nervous. And that wasn't helped by the trailers, because the first few trailers kind of showed that they were doing that with Mario. Like, the first few trailers had platform bits and go-kart bits and character bits and a bit of this, that, and everything. And I was like, oh, they're throwing everything in. And, I've spoken before about Sonic, how Sonic is, to go back to the Sonic movie, that first Sonic movie, considering Sonic is a series known for having this huge cast of characters and, lots of core things, like, they could have easily done a movie about Sonic and Tails and, done an animation. But no, they decided to do a live action and just keep it Sonic and keep it very simple. Not many elements from the games. They didn't put the Chaos Emeralds in, they didn't put Super Sonic in. They kept it trimmed and light. And I think it worked really well. Like, I still think that Sonic, like I said, Sonic movies, again, not great cinema by any means, but I really enjoyed them. And I think they're a very good way of adapting that character. Whereas Mario just seemed like it was throwing everything in. And like I said, part of that's the animation. You don't have to explain as much in animation. You don't have to worry so much about realism and budget and making it all feel authentic and genuine in the way that the Sonic movies had to. But also, part of it feels like animation style. Illumination's style. This is what they do. And, you know, for better or worse, this is what they do. And it had me nervous. It really did. It had me wondering, was this movie just going to have too much? You know, this wasn't helped by the cast reveal. Like, the cast reveal had, you know, Chris Pratt and Charlie Day, and it's like, okay, they're fine voice actors for what they are. Like, I wasn't sure of Chris Pratt playing Mario, but like Chris Pratt is a, you know, I know a lot of people have fallen out of favor with him because of the views of his church, although he's never explicitly come out and confirmed that he agrees with all of their views 100%, but he's also not said otherwise. So, you know, don't want to give him too much credit. But Chris Pratt is fine, and he's done voice acting work. You know, admittedly, it does sound like his voice, but like he's done the 2 Lego movies, and they're fine. They're really good. In fact, like the first one especially, I love. So he can do voice work, and he can do voice work quite well. And so I was like, okay, this is fine. I'm intrigued. I'm curious. Give me what you got. And Charlie Day I quite like as well. And again, I've heard Charlie Day do voice acting. Again, I think he was in the Lego movie as well. And he's great. He's a good voice actor. He's a good actor in general, but he's a good voice actor. And, you know, he was quite interested in him playing Luigi. And then, of course, you know, the other characters you'd expect. You had Toad, you had Peach, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. Then you had Donkey Kong and Cranky Kong. And I was like, okay, why are they bringing in Donkey and Cranky? That just seems like maybe they're throwing in too much. You've got Mario, Luigi, Peach, Toad, Bowser, Magic Koopa. Do you really need all these others? But yeah, so I was intrigued, and then the first trailer dropped, and I was like, you know, the very first trailer, the first teaser that we had, which actually turns out to be the first scene of the movie where Bowser attacks the penguin people. That was fun. Like, that bit was quite good, and Jack Black as Bowser was really good. Like, again, he felt like he was putting a voice on, like he was acting a role. And again, I've heard Jack Black do voice acting. He's very good at it. Chris Pratt was a bit less enamored with. Same with Keegan-Michael Key as well, actually, as Toad. I didn't think he made a great impression. Although it didn't sound like him. He did sound like he was putting a voice on. But, yeah. It was the trailers after that threw so much out. And I was like, oh, this is going to be an Illumination movie where they just throw everything in it. But, with it being my birthday a couple of days ago, I decided to take the kids out to go and see it. And we went and watched it, all as a family. I actually quite enjoyed it. I don't think I had as much cause to worry as perhaps I thought I did. So yeah, let's discuss the actual movie itself. So the past month has been a bit manic, so I'm only finally now getting around to recording this part of the podcast. I just want to say the Mario Brothers movie is pretty good. It is not perfect by any means, and it's still very much definitely an all ages family film, specifically aimed at children, but an all ages family film. And but it is good, and I think even if, like me, you're not a huge fan of Mario, I think you will like it. It is packed full of references. I wasn't wrong when I said that Illumination would stuff this film, and they did. But for the most part, I think a lot of the ways that they've done it are done in a very loving way, where these things are in the background. They're not being pointed out to you for the most part. They're not like, "Oh, look at this. Don't you remember this?" It's like, no, it's flavor. It's in the background. Like there's a scene where they burst through a wall and the hole behind them is the shape of the sprite Mario's head from the old games. It's like that's a fun little touch. Or like the woman in their plumbing advert is the woman who voices Princess Peach. It's voiced by the woman who voiced Peach in the old Super Mario Brothers Super Show, which is also being referenced in their advert because it has the song from it. Um, yeah, it's fun. It's a fun little film with some really clever moments. And plot wise, the plot is really basic. Like it's very basic. A lot of people jumped on the it's woke bad bandwagon because Peach is a bit more capable of a character than she has been in the majority of the games. Although there have been many, many games where Peach has been, not the damsel in distress. And let's be honest, the whole idea of Peach being the princess being the damsel, it's been done. It's tired. Disney's been doing it for 70 years. We don't need it. you know, I'd much rather have the sort of Peach we get in this, and it's Luigi that's in peril. Um, I think that works. I think that's quite interesting. It does mean we don't see a lot of Charlie Day's Luigi in this, which is a shame. Because I do quite like him. I think he does a good performance as Luigi, and their chemistry, Chris Pratt and Charlie Day's chemistry as Mario and Luigi, works really well. And I don't know if they recorded together, but if they didn't, it just shows how good of actors they are. Because I know a lot of voice recording, they don't tend to have all the actors in the same room, so they can't necessarily play off of each other. Um, but I don't know if they did that with this or not. But it does mean that the film is about the Mario brothers, and yet the Mario brothers are separated for a large part of the movie, which is a shame. But this is where you can pick up on a sequel, and even then, their relationship is very well established in the first act, and their connection to each other is really well established, and so it's fine. I buy it. And I think they've done a good job with it. So I do have issues with the movie. One of my biggest issues is the soundtrack, by which I don't mean the actual score. The actual score soundtrack is really good, with lots of you know little hints of classic Mario video game music dotted throughout, which is great because the Mario music is catchy as hell. Like in terms of listening material, I hate to keep comparing Mario to Sonic, but obviously the two were rivals for a long time for a good reason, you know. And I grew up with Sonic. I grew up. I came to Mario second, and it never appealed to me as much as Sonic the Hedgehog did. And part of that was the gameplay was better in Sonic, and another part of it was that you know, the it was that the music was better. The level design was better. I can listen to Sonic music, even the old Mega Drive music. I can listen to that. It's on my playlist. I have a lot of Sonic music on my Spotify playlist, for example. Whereas Mario, one, I don't think Mario's on Spotify, but two, even if it was, whilst a lot of them are very catchy songs and great video game music, I'm not sure I'd listen to them over and over again. Unlike, say, for example, Sonic or Mega Man or Zelda, which are a lot of the other contemporaries of the time. But at the same time, the Mario music is iconic. It gets in your head. You find yourself singing it all day. You know, I'll be walking around and I'll just be, humming to myself. And I'm like, that's the Mario music. It's in my head. And it's just in my head all day. And and because it's a loop, it'll just be doing that loop all day. Which can get very annoying. But it means that, this music is used very, very well in the film. The problem I have with the soundtrack is, in the same way as a lot of Illumination movies, they have decided to include needle drops. And needle drops are a bit of a thing that can be a bit hit and miss in films anyway. I think a lot of them are very tired and predictable, and especially in family movies. Now, I understand to a point, because I do think, for in the case of kids movies especially, sometimes the obvious ones might be the first time that this person has ever heard these songs. Some kids might only have heard these songs for the first time in a kids movie, but as an adult, it's like, I've heard these songs before. I've heard them in this similar sort of context before. It's it's not as fun, you know. The needle drops just don't feel as good as, maybe putting in some of the Mario music would be. There's plenty of great Mario music. Like, there's a bit where they build their carts, right? And I can't remember off the top of my head exactly what song they're putting over it. I think it's an AC/DC one. Um, but surely there's a song from one of the Mario Kart games that could have been remixed and fit better. Especially because Brian Tyler has done such a good job with the soundtrack. Like, the actual soundtrack is so good. It's got leitmotifs from the Mario games, from Luigi's Mansion, from Donkey Kong. So it's like, why is there not, why have we got a needle drop instead of an actual, an actual Mario song? Yeah, Thunderstruck. That's what they're playing. They're playing Thunderstruck. Now, Thunderstruck is a great song. Holding Out for a Hero comes in as well. Take On Me comes in. And it's like, these are great songs. And, for some people, it might be the first, a lot of kids, it might be the first time that they're hearing these songs, you know? So the needle drops in this. We have No Sleep Till Brooklyn, Holding Out for a Hero, Take On Me, Thunderstruck, and Mr. Blue Sky. And the DK rap. But the DK rap I'll let off, because that is something that's actually from a Mario game or a Donkey Kong game. But those needle drops, like I said, they might be the first time a lot of kids have heard them, which is great, because I think they're all good songs. I think they're all worth listening to. But why are they in the movie here? Especially because, I think there might be songs on the soundtrack that might have been designed to be used instead and weren't, which is a shame. So yeah, that's a shame. Although, if I'm speaking about songs in the movie, I have to mention what is quite possibly one of the most fun um, songs in the movie, which is Jack Black's Peaches. Um, Jack Black in this as Bowser, they have made it so that Bowser is in love with Princess Peach. That's why he's after her. He gets the superstar at the start, and yeah, he wants to use that to wow Princess Peach so that she agrees to marry him, which is kind of lovely. I'm not gonna lie. I think it is kind of lovely. The idea that Bowser is just in love with Peach. I think that's sweet. And yeah, he sings this song called Peaches, um, which is just this infectious little ditty, and it's just Jack Black being very Jack Black. Um, but it's fun. And technically, because it's an original song, I think it could be eligible for an Oscar, like best original song, which is insane. Um, but yeah, it's I can't fault that. I can't hate that because it's too charming. You can't dislike it. So yeah, there's that going on, which is great. It's so much fun. Um, but yeah, regarding the actual movie itself, okay, so the plot's decent. Like I said, it's very simple. The Mario and Luigi have kind of struck out away from the family. They're in Brooklyn. They've opened a plumbing business. Their family are not really supportive, which makes me wonder as well how old Mario and Luigi are supposed to be in this, because they look like Mario and Luigi, and yet they've got other brothers. Also, will their two other brothers become Wario and Waluigi in the movie? That'd be great. Just saying. Um, but yeah, they live at home with their mum and their dad, and they exist in Brooklyn. And again, Brooklyn is packed with references. Like, there's one bit where they do this like Mario platforming level through a construction site, and it's laid out like level 1-1 from Mario, from the original Mario Brothers. Um, there's also, their boss from the Wrecking Crew, Spike, is it? He's he's there. They're in a diner, and the diner has a Donkey Kong arcade machine, and the guy playing it has Charles Martinet's voice, so the voice of the original Mario. And at one point, he even does the Mario Jumpman pose. Oh my god, it's great! It's so much fun. Oh, and the mayor of Brooklyn is Pauline from Mario Odyssey and Donkey Kong. So yeah, that's a lot of fun. Um, but yeah, Brooklyn starts flooding. They go underground to try and help and try and make a name for themselves, but I don't think anyone even notices them go. And they end up going all the way down underground, and they find a warp pipe. They go in the warp pipe, and they end up in the Mushroom Kingdom. And we reveal, they get separated. Luigi ends up in Bowser's lands, and Bowser's on the warpath because he's got his army, he's got the superstar, he's got a whole load of prisoners, including a very suicidal Luma, which is absolutely hilarious. It's voiced by a little kid, but it says some really dark lines. It made me think of a lot of the times in South Park where they get like little kids to voice the kindergartners, and they come out with some really dark stuff. um, Although not quite to that level, obviously. There's no swearing, but it's just like he makes reference to wanting to die. It's a bit weird, but very funny. Um, some of the most laugh out loud moments in those parts of the movie. Um, and yeah, so Mario's on his way to the Mushroom Kingdom. No, Bowser. Mario lands in the Mushroom Kingdom, gets found by Toad, and Toad takes him to see the princess. And they sort of break into the castle. He meets Princess Peach. Um, Peach sort of helps. Peach and Mario don't quite get along at first, and then there's a training montage and some other stuff, and the plot moves quite quickly. It's like any minor obstructions in their relationship have to be overcome quite easily, because she needs to go to the Kong Kingdom. I think it's called something else, but yeah, the you know the gorilla country, basically, to make an alliance with Cranky Kong, the king of the Kongs. Um, and that's where we encounter Donkey Kong. And because Mario challenges Donkey Kong, and ends up in a fight with him. And Donkey Kong comes out, he's voiced by Seth Rogen. We find out the gorillas like to drive carts. So they have like, you know, Peach gets their army, and so they have this whole Kong cart army, and they all take their carts over the Rainbow Bridge to head back to the Mushroom Kingdom and try and beat Bowser back. Bowser sort of works out what's going on and sends his troops after them. There's this massive go-kart battle on the Rainbow Road, which is amazing. It's actually one of the better scenes in the movie. It's a really good action scene. Um, and yeah, Mario and Donkey Kong end up separated but together, but separated from Peach. Peach manages to make it back, but she's like the only person who has, because the Rainbow Road got destroyed. A lot of the Kongs got captured, and at that point, Bowser arrives, and it's pretty much just her and Toad, willing to stand and fight. Um, and that's where Bowser proposes, which is so bizarre. Um, and yeah, Mario and Donkey Kong make their way back. They get some power ups. I like as well how the power ups were used in this, because obviously power ups are a big thing in Mario, but they just sort of explain them as just being these things that naturally occur in the world. And it's like, yes, they give you powers, but you can also lose that power if you get hit. If you get hurt, you can lose the power. And it's like it's adapting the rules of the video game into something that makes sense for the film, but also doesn't become too overpowered. And I quite like it. And I think it works for the most part. I just wish we'd seen more of them. Like, we get a fire flower, for example, but it's Peach that uses it. And that's not too much of an issue because I do like Fire Peach. I like her design. But she's doing it while giving her backstory to Mario and revealing how she ended up in the Mushroom Kingdom when she was a baby. Which so she's been raised by the Toads, which I thought was quite sweet. Because yeah, there's flashbacks to Baby Peach and Baby Mario, Baby Luigi. Because yeah, references all over the place. References. Um, but yeah, she uses the fire flower. So and then Donkey Kong, I think, uses the fire flower later on. I don't think I've ever seen a fire DK before. But Mario doesn't. And I'd say the fireball is the most iconic Mario move, but he doesn't use it. Instead, he uses the Tanuki suit, um, and the Mega Mushroom. So the Super Mushroom. So he actually grows big. Um, but yeah, also the Mini Mushroom for a very comic effect at one point in the movie. But yeah, it's fun. It's decent enough, I suppose. I quite enjoyed it. And then of course the battle ends up in Brooklyn. Like they during the final battle, they end up in Brooklyn. Mario and Luigi team up. Luigi overcomes his fear because Luigi's been shown as quite cowardly. Teams up with Mario. They use the superstar. They manage to fight Bowser. Brooklyn's trashed. Um, but yeah, everyone's kind of seen them be brave and be heroes and use superpowers and stuff. And it's fun. And then it ends with them in the Mushroom Kingdom, like living in the Mushroom Kingdom. Yeah, I quite liked it. It was a lot of fun. Like I said, so simple. And like you could predict chunks of the plot if you really wanted to. Like you could predict all those major story arcs. It's very by the numbers, standard hero's journey stuff. Mario being this, sort of indomitable will who never gives up. Luigi being quite cowardly, both of them having to learn, and to sort of evolve past their own flaws. Mario being able to rely on others. Um, Luigi realizing that he can kind of stand up for himself. But yeah, it's good. I enjoyed it. There's a lot of fun stuff. There's a post-credit scene teasing a sequel, which now that this movie has made over $1 billion, by the way, we are totally getting. Like this movie has been a runaway success, and I am glad. Like I said earlier in this episode, Nintendo owns some of the best IP in the world. Like, I'm not a huge fan of a lot of what Nintendo's games, and I'm not a huge fan of necessarily of what they've done with a lot of their IP in their recent games. And I think they've got some that they are just sitting on because they have no ideas for future content, like F-Zero, Star Fox, Earthbound, that have done nothing for ages. But while there's those, there's also Metroid, The Legend of Zelda, Super Mario, Fire Emblem. Like, I know very little about Fire Emblem, but I know that it's this huge franchise with multiple characters, that big, huge, involved RPGs. Like, turn that into an animated series, or an anime, you could make a lot of stuff with it. F Zero would make a great series. Star Fox would make a great series, if not a film. Legend of Zelda, I think, definitely needs to be a film, and ideally animated. Metroid could be a great film, something dark and tense, for slightly older kids. Yeah, there could be a lot of good stuff. They've got this amazing property, but because they got so badly burned by the wizard and that whatever the weird cyberpunk thing was that they did with the original Mario Brothers movie, Nintendo have just been refusing adaptations for decades. And I think part of that means now that there is an audience that's grown up on these properties that is hungry for it. Nintendo have always been popular. They've been popular with kids. A lot of the kids that are in my generation who grew up with Nintendo have grown up and they've got kids of their own. Release this stuff as family movies because those kids are also playing Nintendo. And did I forget? Oh, the biggest Nintendo franchise? Pokemon. Yes, we had the Detective Pikachu movie and we've had anime Pokemon movies for years, but like, you could do so much more with that property, even. you know? Detective Pikachu was how many years ago? And we haven't had any announcement of a sequel. That made a ton of money. Why are we not doing more of that? Why are we not doing more of stuff that people will obviously pay to see? you know, but uh, I just think there's a lot of potential, and I'm very excited for that potential. If Nintendo start making more stuff, especially if they start making it with Illumination and the people working at Illumination make it with as much love for the source material as they clearly made this with, I think it could work. Give us some Kirby web shorts, give us a Zelda CGI movie, give us a Star Fox cartoon series. You know, I am so down for any of that. And I think, as nervous as I was about Mario and about Illumination working with Nintendo, this actually seems to have been something that's really paid off. And I'm so hoping that it's not a flash in the pan, that it's not a one off, a fluke, because I don't think Illumination are terrible. I think they have flaws, but I don't think they're terrible. And I think they've got a lot of good ideas. The trick is making it stick. And I was so worried this would be a huge mess of a film, a huge, complete, total cluster. I don't want to swear, but a complete mess of a movie, with just throwing everything out there and see what sticks. But no, it's got some genuine emotion. It's got some decent storytelling. It weaves itself together well. The references are handled in the right way. So yeah, I'm okay with it. Is it spectacular? No. It's not going to blow anyone away, but it's easily like a 6, 7 out of 10. You're going to have a good time with it. If you're watching it with kids, you're especially going to have a fun time with it. If you're a fan of Nintendo, you're going to have a fun time with it. That's fine. That's perfect for a movie like this. So, yeah, more of this, please. So, yeah, that's my view on the Mario Brothers movie. And I think I really hope that Nintendo and possibly Illumination or possibly someone else work together and make more stuff. Even if it's just a sequel to this, I'm intrigued and I want like all the team that were on this back. You know, the same directors, same producers, same composers, same script writers. Has to be the same people because these people got it and they did a good job. So, fingers crossed that we get more. I'd love to know what everyone else's thoughts are on this. What were your thoughts on watching this? Watching Mario. Did you enjoy it? Were you as nervous about it as I was? Did you enjoy it more than me? Anything you want to speak about, you can find me in all the usual places. Otherwise, until next time, you will look after yourselves, look after your physical and mental health as best as you can. You know, your well-being is important. Do whatever silly thing makes you happy. Until next time, my friends. Thank you, my friends, for once again joining me on Garhdo Goes Geek. Your continued support for this podcast means the absolute world to me, and I am grateful for every single one of you who stays and listens to one of my episodes. It means the absolute world. Now, if you would like to engage more with me or the podcast, we have a Discord community, small but growing, and we now have commissions open on Ko-Fi. So if there's a topic you would like to see me cover, you can pay me to cover it. All funds will be used for legal purchase of the relevant items where I do not have them. Have a look on the link tree for more information. Until next time, look after yourselves.